happened.
All right, guys. Here we are again. It's your weekly episode of Reptile Hangouts podcast. I'm Nick. That's Charles. Wait, never mind.
I'm Nick.
That's Charles. That's Gabe.
Yep.
And we're hanging out. So hit it with the USARK, bro.
All right, man. That's our weekly plug for the number one spot here, USARK. If you're not a member of USARK or you've never heard of USARK, you definitely need to check them out and consider becoming a member. They're the only ones fighting for our rights to continue to keep these animals, while legislators across the country are trying to make it illegal to keep just about anything we want to keep, not just big snakes and big lizards, but they're coming for your small stuff too eventually, and USARK is helping keep that from happening. So tonight, what we have for you guys is current events in reptiles, basically what's in the news for reptiles.
And also, I'm sure you realize that, hey, these two guys are sitting next to each other. Yeah, it's nice, man. Got a little visit from the Brohim over here. And we're all going to get together and have some fun over the weekend. So this is going to be our first in-person live session with more to come. So we're definitely excited for that. So starting out is going to be my favorite part of tonight's discussion, I think. Oh, I don't think I know. It's my opinion, right? I should know that, right? Maybe. Anyway,
You should know your own opinion.
I should know that. New species.
So new species discoveries.
Gotta love it.
Yeah. So surprisingly enough, if you're not familiar with the ongoing search for new species around the world, we find a lot almost every single year, more and more species. Even though species are on the decline, we're discovering more and more all the time. And we've got some of what we think are the coolest ones in the reptile world for this year to talk to you about tonight. So number one on our list, if you were to go and Google new reptile species, I guarantee you your screen would be flooded with world's smallest reptile discovered this year. That's the headline. So we have a new species of teeny tiny chameleon from Madagascar. It's in the Burkessia genus, which we already have some species that we've discovered from that. They're actually really small as well. But this is now officially the smallest one. It's Burkessia nana, or the Nano Chameleon. Very small, discovered and described this year in January. And we're going to do a quick little screen share for you. Bear with us. We don't have a secondary screen, so you're just going to see us minimize this and bring up, minimize and bring up our downloads. So we've got Burkessia nana here, the Nano Chameleon. That is on the tip of somebody's index finger, and that is the world's smallest adult male of any reptile species alive today.
That we know of.
That we know of so far. That we know of so far. But
you might have a smaller cousin somewhere.
What is that like?
But very cool.
Quarter inch from like.
Yeah, absolutely tiny.
Like quarter inch from like head to the base of the tail. I mean.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's crazy.
All right. So hopefully that went pretty smooth. Like I said, don't have a secondary monitor at our disposal right now, so you just have to bear with the screen sharing. And that was discovered by some German scientists in Madagascar. And there's a running joke in the reptile community. What is the first thing that happens when a new species of reptile is discovered? 2 Germans buy plane tickets. If you've ever listened to or read the book, The Lizard King, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, then the Germans, man, they are on it when it comes to finding new reptiles. Although these were actually legitimate biologists that were trying to discover new species, not people going out to catch them and bring them into the pet trade.
But that is a good point, though. Bringing up a little book there, that's a fantastic one. So if you haven't heard it or read it, I say heard it specifically because we live in the age of listening to books now. So if you're like me and you get headaches and you just can't see straight all the time, you listen to them. That's a great listen/read. Definitely check it out.
Yep, The Lizard King. Very fantastic book. I still listen to it once every year just because I love it.
So, Gabe, we see you got we can see some of your stuff going on there, man. It looks good.
Yeah, man. Thanks, bro.
So what's behind you there? If you want to give us just a little rundown of what's behind you.
Oh, I just got, crested geckos. Hold up. Gargoyle geckos over here.
Very nice.
Got...
It's weird trying to point in the screen.
Yeah, I know, because I'm pointing behind me. So over here, I got a Chinese water dragon, emerald tree boa up top. You can't see it.
Very nice.
And then carpet python over there. little tortoise. Tegus. What up? Tegu cage.
Yeah, that Tegu cage is absolutely awesome. It's completely badass. And just a side note, since I am here this weekend in town where these two guys live, this one and that one, I'm pointing at the screen.
That's not. You got to point up.
Yeah, where these two guys live. I am going to be hopefully getting up with Gabe here this weekend and making just a little short video about some of his animals and some of the stuff we picked up when we went to NERBC in Tinley Park. So be on the lookout for that on the channel as well.
Damn right, man.
But moving on to our next new species. This one's actually really cool. It's a new species of wood lizard from the Huallaga Basin in central Peru. It was officially described in August of this year, and it's a highly variable lizard. I only have the one picture that I'm going to bring up to show you right now, unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, but apparently it's extremely variable, all the way from grays with black spots to browns and greens and shades of orange and things like that. So this is that new lizard that I'm going to bring up right now. And there it is.
Oh, dude.
Very cool. And interesting stuff about what's going on in Peru in biology. As we know, South America in general is a biodiversity hotspot. You know, if you want to go somewhere and find new stuff, go to South America. What's going on in Peru is there's been some civil unrest there for many, many years, basically since the 80s. But now that things are starting to calm down, the biologists are starting to go down there and move in more and look for new stuff. So this is one of the new things that they found. Very, very beautiful lizard.
That lizard is beautiful, man.
Isn't it? It definitely looks like something you would want to keep.
yeah. It's right up my alley, man. Like,
yeah.
That's about us.
Okay, let's bring the.
I'll definitely have to be doing some looking up on that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
All right, guys, we got to take a quick side note here. We have it's a pair, Schrodinger's cat temperature variant coffee mugs, and we decided to have a little fun with it. We've mixed them up. We don't know which one's which.
Let's tell them the deal with Schrodinger's cat if we don't know.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go grab the hot tea. You explain.
All right. So you may realize that by now that we're kind of nerds. We like science of all kinds. And one of the other things that especially me and my brother like is physics. And Schrodinger's cat, proposed by Schrodinger, of course, is a thought experiment where you have a box, it's closed, there's a cat inside, and until you actually observe the cat, you don't know whether it's dead or alive, and so therefore it's both dead and alive.
And alive, yeah.
Principle. Yeah.
And we call that a superposition.
A superposition, right. It's a quantum thing, correct?
Yes.
Yes, quantum mechanics. So these cat mugs, we don't know whether I have the dead cat or Charles has the dead cat. So until we pour in the steaming hot tea that we just poured,
we both have a dead one.
We both have dead ones and we both have a live one. Just a fun little thing that we thought we'd do. Charles got these mugs a long while back, but I haven't been here until now. So we're going to do it live.
All right. What do you think? What do you think?
I think that I have the dead cat.
You think you have the dead cat?
I do.
It'd be your luck.
Yeah, I think you got the dead one too. You got the dead one.
Yeah. I got the dead cat. So now we have hot tea and we have deceased cats and living cats.
Bro, you need.
Let's go ahead and talk about some more things that are alive, currently extant on the planet right now. And let's move on to our next brand new species. The next one is called the Suzanne's crate. If you don't know about krates are an interesting species or an interesting group of elapids. A lot of them are aquatic or at least semi-aquatic. This is a brand newly described crate from the Yunnan province in China. And I have a single photo to share with you from that. And here it is. Looks a lot like, if you've ever seen a picture of a sea crate, looks a lot like a sea crate, but it is evidently different in some
morphological. I thought sea crates were made of like the wood with nails. Wrong crate. It's all in the spelling.
It's all in the spelling. That would be Krait, as opposed to Crate.
Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so no, just a small. That's a beautiful snake.
Yeah.
As I'm sure you've heard, if you saw our last episode, I'm a snake guy. That's what I love, and that is a beautiful one.
Yep. This one is obviously a venomous creature. It is an elapid, so it is related to cobras and coral snakes and things of the such. And bear with me. We're back. So yeah, very cool new snake discovered in China. Things getting discovered all the time. And speaking of new snakes, I have what is probably my favorite new species discovery of the night to share with you right now. So there is a young Indian graduate student.
Oh, I love this one. It's a great story.
Yeah, a young Indian graduate student that lives in the Himalayan region of India. And he has an Instagram page. He loves to go outside and experience nature and take photographs. And his Instagram handle is Himalayan_explorer. And this year, he went out in his backyard, do some Himalayan herping, and he found a snake that he thought was a known species of kukri snake, and he posted a picture of it on Instagram. And some taxonomists got their hands on the picture and realized that it was not a known species, it was a brand new species. So this species was discovered via Instagram. And if you were with us last week, we talked about the benefits and the mishaps going on with social media. I'd say that's a pretty solid benefit.
That's a strong benefit.
Pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
And like I said, his Instagram handle is at Himalayan_explorer. I have not put it in the description of this video yet, but I definitely will right after the recording ends this evening. You have to check out his Instagram. That thing is just filled with amazing wildlife photography. He is a top-notch photographer. I won't go ahead and try to pull up his Instagram right now on the page because it will take me too long and it will be a lot of dead space. But definitely at Himalayan_explorer. Check it out. I highly recommend. Very cool. So I'm going through looking for new species this week to talk about, that were actually discovered this year or at least close to it. And I want to find some stuff that's actually discovered in the United States. And one of the sources I use a lot in my own education is called amphibiaweb.org. It's an amazing online database that's updated constantly that lets you know about pretty much any amphibian species that you could possibly want to know about. They also have a new species section that lets you go by year and look at all the new species discovered. So I found a new Plethodontid Salamander that was described from a tiny range in Point Arguello, California, if I said that right. And it's from the genus Batrachoceps. And I have one photo to show you guys. That's the wrong one.
Sneak peek.
Thought I had a photo.
Is that not it? At the bottom there?
This?
Yeah.
That's the lizard. Okay, so we're up on our very first sort of serious error here on the podcast. I was under the impression that I sent all those photos over to Charles so we could have them on the computer for tonight's broadcast, but I didn't have it. But I'll describe it to you. I don't know if you're familiar with Plethodontid salamanders. They're usually small-bodied terrestrial salamanders that spend a lot of their time on the forest floor and in leaf litter, but they do typically sometimes move around at night on the surface. This Plethodontid salamander is a fairly typical one, although it's very long and slender, sort of a gunmetal to slate gray color. Very nondescript for the most part, but still really cool that we can find brand new species of salamander in places like California, where a lot of stuff is actually going on. So I just thought it was fun to share.
Yeah, heck yeah.
So
you happen to have a good amount of experience with salamanders.
I do have a good amount of experience with salamanders. I mean, if
most of your college career spent with salamanders.
Yeah, if it's worth talking about. So I, in my undergraduate work, at Marshall University in West Virginia, I worked with a lot of graduate students there who were working on salamander-related projects, including one on the endemic and highly endangered Cheat Mountain salamander, which is only found in a small portion of West Virginia, pretty much in the Monongahela National Forest. So I was lucky enough to see a couple of those during that work, which are pretty hard to come across. They're just a tiny little salamander. And then my own graduate studies took me into looking at road mortality in ambistomatid salamanders, which are mole salamanders. They're much more large and robust salamanders called mole salamanders because they typically live underground and under, large woody debris and rocks and things like that. So I looked at road mortality. I looked at larval growth and larval or in reproductive health in ponds where there was high road mortality nearby. So yeah, I have a fair amount of experience with salamanders. Which brings us to our last known species, and I got to admit this is definitely one that I picked because it's a favorite. Because if you want to get technical about it, the paper was published in 2019. But I just told you my alma mater is Marshall University, and the number one herpetology guy there for over 30 years is the leader of the herpetology program and a professor emeritus now, Dr. Thomas K. Pauly. Just an absolutely amazing guy, helped me all the way through undergrad and all the way into graduate work. Really good guy. And, he's no longer working as a professor, but he is continually writing books. So I would definitely look for his publications if you're interested in Eastern United States reptile species and or species specific to West Virginia. He's got great publications out there. But one of his old graduate students was able to look and reevaluate the Worley salamander complex. The Worley salamander is a small Plethodontid salamander, dark in color, usually with some white specks. And they reevaluated it based on DNA and some morphological characteristics and named a brand new species for Dr. Pauly, known as Plethodon paulii. And that one I do have a photo of. You've actually already seen it briefly because I pulled it up. I pulled up the wrong photo. It's actually a really, really cool little salamander. Can we just get big? There we go. All right. Really cool little salamander. Interesting to me because I was talking about embistemated salamanders and the fact that, they're bigger than Plethodonids. This almost looks like a Plethodon crossed with a spotted salamander. If you've ever seen a spotted salamander, they're dark like that, and they have those yellow spots all the way down their back. So just a really interesting new division of a known species and named for a really great guy who contributed a lot of knowledge to herpetology over the years. All right. And just my last note that I want to talk about with this. We talked about a few amphibians tonight that were discovered. And just to sort of put it in perspective for you, I started out saying that there was a lot of new species that are discovered all the time. And AmphibiaWeb reports that there were, AmphibiaWeb reports that there are 128 species of amphibians that have just been described in 2021 so far. So if that puts it in perspective for you.
Oh, man.
And another thing that we want to talk about, and sort of loosely on the same subject, since we're looking at new species, a lot of these databases where you can go and find this information will usually have conservation status and or protection status listed. And
we talked about this the other day. It's kind of
and I noticed that a lot of the brand new ones really didn't have a protection status. It makes sense that they wouldn't have a conservation status because we don't know that much about them yet, and their population size and their home ranges and things like that. But if the fact that they don't have a protection status was a little bit surprising to us, and it made us sort of wonder if there's not something in place to actually put brand newly described species that we don't have a lot of information on just automatically on protection, until we get more information. I wasn't able to find anything 100% on that, but yeah, it was just one of those things that we
maybe let us know in a comment if you know more about it. That is one thing that definitely struck me is odd when he first mentioned it. I mean, because you would think when you discover something new and very little about the species, the first thing you want to do is, well, let's protect this thing until we know what's going on. But often the first thing that happens is, it gets removed from its habitat. Sorry about that. And it's unfortunate. So that's a little conservation out there. It'd be nice to see some sort of protection on newly discovered species, I think.
Right. I agree 100%. And there may be something in place. So like Charles said, please let us know if you have any idea, of any policy that's actually in place to protect brand newly described species like that, as opposed to, we have to find more information on them before we can decide whether to protect them or not. That kind of sounds like it's probably more accurate because of the way things are done in the world today with red tape and things like that. And if that's the case, I feel like it's pretty unfortunate. I feel like there should be something in place to protect these things right at the gate until we're sure whether they actually need protecting or not. Would you agree, Gabe?
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if they haven't, the way I see it is, if they haven't been discovered till now, there must not be that many of them.
Yeah.
That's definitely a possibility for sure, especially things with like the tiny range, like the new California salamander. You know, they're known from a tiny range.
It's just very, very, very subtle differences too. So it's like,
Yeah. Not every time you see something new, it's like, wow, it's got 17 legs and fur and snout, and that's obviously new.
Right. That's worth talking about. I mean, we're in a world today where we have a lot of technology when it comes to genetics at our disposal. A lot of these things are discovered not based on how they look, but based on taking samples of their genetic material and then running out what's called a phylogeny or a phylogenetic tree. So you can look at, you know, exactly where things have branched off from one another and how different they really are, even if they don't look the same. So that's how a lot of new species are named. That's how the poly-eye salamander was named. Basically, it was a reevaluation, although there is some slight morphological differences in certain parts of the range. So we're on the subject of news. I sort of decided to break this down into some categories. We have new species, and our next category that we want to talk about is conservation-related news. So anybody else want to talk about that?
So I'm going over the notes here. And, you know, I read pretty good. I think I'm up to like a 7th or 8th grade level these days, but that's only in English, and this stuff doesn't look like English, Bubba.
Yeah.
All right, so well, let's talk about the Eastern Indigo Snake Reintroduction Program. This has been led by Auburn University. And
the Nature Conservancy.
Where am I looking here?
I'm sorry, the way it went into the PDF.
Oh, I was like Auburn University, 6 populations. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I see it now. I see it now. This is
sorry. It's my fault. I write the notes for the podcast, guys, and I'll admit that when I changed this into a PDF to send to the other guys, it sort of messed up my bullet pointing a lot. Let's just start by talking about the magnitude of the Eastern Indigo snake for a minute. I know me and Gabe both know a little bit about this snake, and we both absolutely love this snake. I've been known to call it the holy grail of North American colubrids.
Colubrids, yeah.
What do you got on that, Gabe?
No, dude,
I'm out of it on this one.
Indigo is definitely one of those snakes that anybody that's into snakes wants to have, for sure. But you know, you can't just get an indigo. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, conservation things going on that can really get you into some trouble, man.
Absolutely. Yeah,
there's definitely, you know, it's a snake that if you want to have, you're definitely going to have to invest some money, because you're going to have to go, you know, get permits and stuff like that. Especially like here in Virginia, you definitely have to get a permit to have one.
And that's true. And they are a big investment monetarily speaking too. They can be upwards of, you know, a few $1,000s for an individual in some cases these days. And there are a lot of people doing captive breeding with Eastern indigos now, which is really nice. But in the early days of indigo conservation, or sort of lack thereof, for lack of a better term.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. You know, early days of indigos, there was only a handful of states where they were actually found that were giving them the protection that they needed. And they've been extremely popular in the pet snake trade ever since their discovery, because they're widely known for being really large, really impressive snakes, but also really docile snakes. They don't really have proponents to bite like many other snakes do. So it made them really, really desirable in the pet trade. And, you know, just the failure of a couple of states to protect them basically led to their demise, you know, as far as the destruction of their populations over the years, because anybody could pick them up from a protected state And then if they were caught, just say that they got it from a non-protected state. And
Yep.
there would be no way, in those days for any conservation officer or agency to know whether those snakes came from a protected or
Yeah,
not.
and nowadays they got genetic testing and everything.
I mean, yeah, for sure.
They know.
So, I mean, what it boils down to is the importance of reintroducing this species into its once native range, where it's highly declined and or completely absent at this point. Is we want to keep the snake, around for future generations and in the environment to serve the niche that it was meant to serve. You know what I mean? And they have extremely interesting life histories. These snakes are known to share burrows with gopher tortoises, which is another imperiled species from the southern United States. They dig really long, really intricate burrows, and it's pretty much estimated that gopher tortoise.
Yeah, the gopher tortoise, right?
Yeah. It's estimated that their burrows can be home to dozens of different species, and one of those is the eastern indigo snake. But anyway, the Eastern Indigo Reintroduction Program is led by some researchers at Auburn University and also put on by the Nature Conservancy. And this year, they released 25 more adults into the Apalachicola Bluffs and Reserves Preserve in Florida. And Ravines Preserve in Florida. And this makes a total of 69 that have been released in the last 4 years. And their goal is to introduce 400 by the time the program is over, at least 400 individuals. And part of the program is these guys are fitted with GPS, or not GPS, they're fitted with radio tags, and they're also fitted with RFID chips so that they can monitor the released snakes and see how they're actually doing as time goes on and figure out if this reintroduction program is actually going to work or not. And that's something that in the past has had some pretty mixed results, actually. There's a lot of research that's going on at my university in particular in the southern United States with eastern diamondback relocation. They're moving eastern diamondbacks to, out of populated areas and into what would be more suitable habitat based on their natural history. And it's met with a mixed results. Some of them do not make it when they're moved. So having this information on the eastern indigo snake is highly important.
That's badass.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What's next on the list here? We got, we're going to skip ahead to this one. You can come back to the next one. But the 2021 Florida Python Roundup. You got to love them. And this year, they get some pretty good numbers this year. They got 223 total snakes with a huge one. The biggest this year was, 15.9.
Yeah.
15.9. That's a big boy. That's a big boy. Well, probably girl, but what does that say? Their current record is 18.8. I thought that said 19.8. Still 18.8.
Yeah, the biggest one that's ever been pulled out. So
now, do we know the? Do we know if it was a male or female?
I didn't see if it was a male
or
female.
I was just curious at this point, honestly.
Yeah. So basically, interestingly enough, I was in Florida when this contest started, and part of me wanted to go try to get involved to see if I could find some Burmese pythons. But if you're in the reptile hobby and you're in the reptile community, you probably know that Florida is overrun with massive amounts of invasive species. It just seems to be a place where everything thrives. And
iguanas.
Yeah, lots of iguanas. Burmese pythons are one of those big deal type of and hot button species that we've heard a lot about over the last several years. They're thriving down in the Everglades and in other parts of southern Florida. So every year now, for the last few years, they've been doing the Python Roundup Challenge. And what they're doing is you can bring in pythons to them. And there's a first prize of $10,000 to someone who has the biggest python. So whoever caught that 15-foot, 9-inch python won themselves $10,000 for doing that. And like Charles said, the biggest one they've ever caught in the past is 18.8. So these things are thriving out there, guys. They're doing well for themselves if they're getting that big.
Yeah.
They're definitely not getting power fed like they do in captivity a lot of times, but they're finding plenty of food. And they're definitely causing problems for native species. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, I mean, you can imagine, dude, a 15-foot snake that decimates some stuff, man.
I mean, I've been down to the Everglades a handful of times, and I still have yet to see one, but I've seen other herpers while I was down there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we just saw one last night." So they're a common.
I actually don't keep track of this. Can anyone just go down there and be a part of this?
That I don't know. I didn't really look into it. I just thought that it would be cool to get involved, but I don't know if you have to be a Florida resident or not. That's a good question. You might have to. You might have to have a Florida hunting or fishing license or something. You still look okay. Well, now you're really dark.
Yeah, it gets dark in here.
Does your timer go off?
Yeah, hold up.
It's all good.
I just got to turn it on.
But yeah, so I don't know if anybody who is a resident of another state can go down there. You might have to register, or you might have to. I know a lot of states require you to have a fishing license or a hunting license or both to capture native herp species. So I would say that that's something that if anybody wants to go down and take part in the next Python Roundup, you definitely need to talk to the Florida Wildlife Conservation Commission. Wow. FWC is what they call it for short.
Damn, bro. I'm going to tell you something, man. You got an excellent memory, bro.
I got a what?
Excellent
memory?
Bro, you are on it today, man.
I know, it's uncanny.
Hey, everybody. Just got to give it up for next night.
Let me just pat myself on the back. But yeah, Charles got up and went to get something real quick. So we'll backtrack a little bit. One of the stories that I wanted to talk about was another sort of interesting conservation issue. So when we're looking at species decline, we're looking at a lot of variables that are involved, okay? So one of the main thing is really just things that we do as humans. When we go into an area and we develop that area, one of the biggest things we cause is what's called habitat fragmentation. So it is what it sounds like. You know, when we develop an area, we try to leave some of it natural, but we have, you know, as an ultimate consequence of that, we have to develop some of it. And what happens is populations of animals, native species, get fragmented into smaller pockets. And if you know anything about genetics and you know anything about adaptation and or evolution, you know that, you know, having good gene flow between populations is extremely important to any species survival and ability to adapt and overcome to acute changes in the environment. We're talking about things that can change from year to year.
Yeah.
So this leads me to a story about 6 populations of tiger snakes. That's another species of elapid from Australia, highly venomous, that were studied, and it revealed low genetic diversity in all of those populations. And what that is most likely from is a lot of inbreeding that's taking place because those populations are fragmented and snakes from one area can't get over to an area to breed with snakes from another population. So you get inbreeding and you get decreased genetic diversity. And basically what it boils down to is, if I can put it in the simplest terms possible, is if you have the way evolution and or adaptation works is if you have a snake that has a particular genetic attribute that allows it to be more fit and survive, you know, some sort of environmental pressure, and it breeds with another snake, it can pass on those traits to that other snake, to the next generation, or not to the other snake, but to the next generation. If that snake can't get to those other snakes, then those other snakes will never see that genetic trait that gives them that advantage introduced into their population. And basically it's just a mixing of related genes. And if something comes in and changes, you know, from year to year, then you might have serious declines based on that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not what they're seeing in those populations yet, but that is definitely a risk of inbreeding and decreased genetic diversity.
Yeah, because basically the more non-related an animal is, you know, the more robust and better the babies will be. So
exactly. This is something that we do in captive breeding, right, Gabe?
Yeah.
From time to time.
I mean, sometimes you got to bring new stuff in, man.
That's right.
That's why, you know, whatchamacallit, importing is still a big thing, man, because, you know, at some point you still got to be able to get new blood in the, you know, new genes.
Absolutely.
Genes,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, what we're really famous for right now in captive husbandry and breeding is something that we call line breeding. So we're taking, you know, a couple of animals that have a desirable trait, whether it be a particular color or a particular body shape, and we're breeding them into each other. And then the best ones that come from that, we're breeding them back in, and we're trying to enhance those traits. And if you do that for so long, you're going to eventually end up having some sort of inbreeding depression problems.
Yeah, you're basically doing the same thing you were just talking about, but in
But on an artificial level, yeah. Yep. In your own small little population that you have going on in your collection.
So,
yeah. So definitely important to think about when it comes to conservation. You know, we have an impact on the environment wherever we go. Pretty much everything that people do has an impact. And habitat fragmentation is pretty much one of the number one causes of species loss across all taxa. So,
yeah, and that's sad, man.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. We want these animals to be here for as long as possible, but unfortunately, we are doing some things that is going to make that pretty hard to continue to have to be the case.
Yeah.
So the next thing that I want to talk about is another really hot topic in wild snakes and also some captive snakes as well, and it's a disease issue. So I don't know if anybody who is listening or will see this has heard of, but there's this disease called snake fungal disease, or SFD. And it's what it sounds like. Snakes get fungus on their skin, and it causes lesions, and it causes decreased ability to feed and drink, and it can definitely be fatal. And it's primarily observed in wild snakes from pretty much all over the country. But what I thought was interesting about this is it was a particular study that was done using museum specimens. So basically snakes in jars of formaldehyde, formalin, or probably at this point 70% ethanol. If they've been decanted off, that's sort of the new go-to over the cancer-causing formaldehyde-based things that we used to use.
Dude, everything causes cancer nowadays, though.
Yeah. But so basically... they looked at a bunch of different specimens that were preserved in a museum, and they were able to take swabs from those snakes and then do genetic testing. So basically PCR, or polymerase chain reaction. You're basically sticking that genetic sample in a machine that then amplifies it so it's big enough to detect. You know what I mean? Hello, wife. My wife, Elizabeth Sheeler, just came into the chat and said hello. So hi, babe. Appreciate you watching.
Hello.
Gabe says hi too. So this interesting study says that the oldest specimen that was found to be positive for SFD was preserved in 1945. So I think, yeah. So this is sort of a new hot button thing within the last 10 or 15 years or so, where we're seeing a lot of snakes pop up in the wild in different areas of the country, showing clinical signs of snake fungal disease. But what this tells us is that it's been something that's been in populations for a very, very long time. I know. And the question is, the main question is that I think comes to mind is what's going on now? Why are we seeing so many instances of it? Is it just that we're looking more? Or is it that, because I mean, herpetology has been a science for a long time, and there's been dedicated field herpetologists for a very long time. Or is it some sort of environmental change that's now making this thing thrive more? And I think that's an interesting thing to bring up. We've seen, the rise of diseases in lots of different animals over the last few decades, and it makes you wonder if this is something that was always present and now it's worse because the conditions are different. I'm talking about climate change.
Yeah,
I
sure.
said
it. Canceled.
Whoa, man, come on.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, I just thought it was really interesting that it goes that far back, and that we have the technology now to go back and look at these things that, and answer questions about snakes that were looked at years and years ago, and nobody was able to, to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, man. That's pretty badass, man. It's crazy how technology, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's really come a long way, and it can answer some really crazy questions for us.
That's why we'll keep learning new stuff every day, man.
Yep.
Sure.
But yeah, man. I'm looking at the notes. Sorry, man. They are messed up. I didn't really look at these closely after I sent them to you. I'm the one who writes them, so I got a pretty good idea of what's in them.
Bro, I thought I couldn't spell. Okay, That's all.
No, it's not the spelling that's an issue because they're spell check now, so that helps. Anyway, moving on to what I'm calling the captive reptile news. Okay, so we're going to talk about what's going on in captive husbandry. And some of it overlaps a little bit with conversation, especially this very first story. So if you're in the reptile community, especially if you like lizards, primarily iguanas, then you know who Ty Park is. Do you know who Ty Park is, Gabe?
No,
You know
actually,
who
I
Ty
don't.
Park is? Oh, this
No,
is
bro,
good.
I'm not. Look, I gotta look it up. I'm not like.
No, this is good, man. So Ty Park he's one of the honestly the historical greats in herpetoculture. He's down in Florida, like a lot of the main herp guys. He's big in iguana conservation, and his really big thing that he does is keep the iguanas from the genus Cyclura, so the rhino iguanas and the Cayman Island iguanas and things like that. The really big, like puppy dog iguanas, you know. And for years, he's had a annual festival down there that he calls Iguana Fest, and herpers from all over the country come down, and a ton of money is raised. Actually, around $250,000 every year goes into iguana conservation from Ty Park's Iguana Fest.
What time of years does it normally go around?
I actually don't know right off the top of my head, but I think it's sometime in the summer. I think it's in the summertime. If you know, just if I can remember correctly from seeing it on various videos and things like that. But really, the point of this is what's going on now with Ty Park is for the last couple of years or so, a few years, he's been building his own zoological park down there, and it's going to be called Iguana World, and it's basically set to open any time now. But this thing is absolutely massive. Dave Kaufman has videos on it on his page. If you're familiar with Blake's Exotic Animal Ranch on Facebook or on did I say Facebook when I just said that? I said Facebook. I meant YouTube, obviously, because Dave Kaufman's on Facebook too, but he's a YouTuber. Blake's Exotic Animal Ranch is another YouTuber that's been down there and done tours of it. So I would definitely look up those videos. This place is absolutely insane. There are huge outdoor enclosures all scattered throughout this thing, full of just a myriad of species. It's going to be one of the largest places in the world for different iguana species and different chelonian species, so turtles and tortoises. And Ty's such a good guy, man. He obviously is going to make some money off of this, but what his express goal is to bring awareness to people about the importance of reptiles in the ecosystem and the importance of reptile conservation. And he's also hoping to raise an additional $250,000 every year to go towards various reptile charities. So he is, going about $500,000 in a year on this, just in donations, which is really awesome.
That's badass, man.
Yeah,
definitely seems like a good guy. I'm shocked.
I can't believe you know
who this guy is, man. you're like, you know who he is. I'm like,
I would have. I just would have guessed that you would have known who he was.
You're the iguana guy out of us.
No, I don't have iguanas, man. Come on, bro.
You grew up with them, but that's about it.
I did grow up with them,
but anyway, we'll talk about our next story. This is what's going on I think one of the biggest things going on in husbandry right now. Are you familiar with Ryan and Erica McVeigh?
No. No, I'm horrible with names. Come on, if you tell me who they are.
Yes.
Oh man, their stuff's cool.
Yeah.
Their
So
stuff is cool.
Ryan and Erica McVeigh are big time people in the hobby for sure. They go to all the big expos and stuff. Ryan, for the last several years, I know, has been running the sort of the research department and taking care of the animals for Zilla, the company that puts out a lot of reptile products. But they've decided to branch off, and they've created their own herpetoculture supply company called Vivtec. And if you haven't heard of Vivtec, you definitely got to look up Vivtec. They are the future of reptile supplies for sure. The company launched this year, and basically their goal is to create highly innovative and highly affordable reptile products to increase, the well-being of all of our captive animals, essentially. And we talked about this a little bit last time, how we worked in a pet store forever, and pretty much every product had like desert and tropical on the back for descriptions for how to keep them. And now, over the years you've learned, and obviously based on the enclosures behind you, you've adapted to this new style of keeping where we're trying to recreate more accurately the environment that these things are coming from, right?
Yeah, man, for sure.
Yeah. So,
well, here's how you do that.
Yeah, here's how you do that.
You got to get the Sure Sun.
Yeah.
These things are cool, man. I don't have a need for them, but you mentioned something to me last time I was down there and was looking into them. And so basically, you got your beautiful LEDs. Everybody loves LEDs. They make your stuff look amazing. LED, they use little to no energy. Great, they're green, so to speak. And everybody loves LEDs. Well, the Sure Sun is going to be your UVA UVB LED strip, and it's just insane to think about.
Yeah, it's not really a strip either. So
I thought they were
telling me.
Well, they might be coming in strips, but right now they're the Sure Sun product. It's their headliner product. It's a little bulb. It's round like this. It almost looks like a little. It almost looks like a little dome light that you screw into a standard dome fixture, and it has 4 bulbs in it. It has 2 UVA UVB bulbs, and it also has plant lights in it as well. And basically, it's a specialized line of UVA UVB lights that has 3 tiers, and you have one that puts out the highest amount of UVB for intense baskers, things like Thai parks, iguanas, and stuff like that. And then you have ones that only bask a little bit during the day, so it's a lower tier. And then you have like a shaded one. So basically, this is like really a game changer for me, and it's something I'm going to try to implement soon. I'll probably order a few for some of my enclosures. Most people argue, and I've argued for years that the New Caledonian geckos, they're nocturnal. They don't necessarily need UVA UVB. And have they been living captive lives healthily without UVA UVB? They certainly have. But I think we're all sort of coming to the conclusion that everything can benefit from UVA UVB.
Even snakes.
Even snakes. And it makes sense. Snakes bask. They're getting UV, right, Gabe?
I mean, like they basically, evolved everything to use every little aspect of, everything around them. So they're definitely, when they're basking and they're sitting there getting, sun, they're definitely going to use that, and you have like a lot of, just a lot of non-visible light that's still getting to them, and they need UV. That's basically
yeah. That's what
snakes need UV, lizards need UV, man. Everything needs UV. Yeah. I'll be honest.
So not only are these oh my God, wife, you have to stop texting me. I'm sorry. I'm gonna shut my volume off. I love you, baby.
Ooh, you're gonna be in trouble. No, just like
what we're talking about with these tiers, not only are the different tiers really innovative, because now we're not just giving 5.0 or 10.0 UVB to every single animal. We're giving specialized amounts of UVB based on the natural behaviors of the animal. You know what I mean? So these low intensity ones are perfect for frogs. They're perfect for geckos, things like that. And then you have it all the way up to really intense baskers. We're talking about Cayman Island iguanas sit on white sand in 100-degree heat all day. What?
I will tell you this, man, from some of the stuff that I have and stuff like that, that would scare me. So you're telling me it's like a spot bulb, basically, like
not a spot bulb. It doesn't put out any heat.
No. I understand that. It's LED.
Yeah, it doesn't put out any heat.
So, but what I'm trying to say, the LED floodlights, it's basically something like that, like a smart.
That's how it's shaped, yes.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so it'll go in like a usual, like your normal fixture.
Yeah.
It screws in like an
I would worry about, I don't know. Let's just
Jonathan Parker.
Because especially from like the fish industry, because I used to do a lot of fish stuff like that, I wonder how they're going to blend everything, because LEDs, it pixelates as it like spreads, the way it spreads, it doesn't actually blend together. So I'm curious about how they're going to do that. I'll have to check it out. I definitely.
Well, it's not how they're going to do it. It's how they're doing it. The product is available now to buy. I checked in on it. It's like $69.99 for a bulb. But here's the thing about their bulbs. Yeah, so let's click this real quick. Let's take a little side note.
Yeah, check it out.
Jonathan Parker, what's up, man? Thank you so much for coming back to the show. We saw you on our very first episode. I'm sure Gabe remembers.
Yeah, damn right, man.
So
Does he got the Heineken?
Does he got a Heineken tonight?
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Have you got your Heineken again tonight, Jonathan? Thanks so much for tuning in, man. We really appreciate you being here. But yeah, so on the subject of the bulb itself, one of the great things about this bulb is it's guaranteed to last 4 years. Yeah, 4 years without any reduction in UV output. So, and they will guarantee that bulb for the lifetime of the thing too.
I wonder how that's going to look. I'm curious to see that under like a Ferguson zone or something like that. And, actually measure like, I'm curious to see. I'm gonna check that product out for sure.
Yeah, you definitely need to check it out. It's guaranteed for 4 years. They also guarantee it. If something happens to it, they'll send you a new one during that 4-year period, which is really awesome. So not only is this going to change the game as far as being able to provide the right amount of UV for your reptile, but it's also changing the game in that it's saving us money as keepers in the long run, because a standard coil UVA UVB bulb that you can screw into one of those fixtures, what's it going to run you? Anywhere between $25 and $35, depending on what you're buying. And it's only guaranteed to work for 6 months, the current technology.
Yeah,
and the bulbs go up from there, from the full spectrum fluorescent.
If you go into some of the linear stuff, like 24-inch, like especially like Acadia, they have some of those last longer than they say they do. I'll tell you that.
I'm sure. Yeah. But that's another thing. Yeah, that's another thing that they're putting out. They're putting out an affordable UV meter as well, which is another product that they have. So now you can have access to a UV meter, so you can test your own bulbs. And then what they're trying to do is they're trying to get these products out to the community at large, so they can build a data set to see how well these products are actually working, which I think is great.
That's cool, man. Yeah, that's really awesome. So it's cool to see.
My man's got his beer. That's
new what do you say?
Yeah.
You said he got it?
Yeah, he's got some growth.
But
Jonathan's got
it's definitely cool to see technology catching up finally in the reptile industry.
Absolutely. And Ryan and Erica are dedicated to this cause of getting us to move towards better husbandry practices and better well-being for all of our animals. And they're even in the future possibly looking at trying to integrate some of this technology into rack keeping as well, so that we don't have to sacrifice. If you're a rack keeper, you don't have to sacrifice your animal's well-being to give them just because you're keeping them in a rack.
Yeah.
So they're looking at integrating these products into rack systems.
I can't help but feel there's a little nod to the well-being of the environment on this one too. I mean, LEDs. That's
Absolutely.
like the OG go green move right there.
Absolutely. Energy
saving,
saving,
less power, energy conservation.
Yep.
Be more mindful, save the planet, all the good stuff. I feel like LEDs are on the forefront of that. So.
Yep.
And I mean, we're pretty much all LED people. I mean, almost every bulb in my house is LED.
Yep.
Wallet likes it for sure. The Earth likes it. So
yeah,
that's got to be noted too.
For sure.
I got halogen bulbs and mercury vapor bulbs and UV bulbs and everything. Just
you got animals that need a lot of heat. So
oh yeah.
That's how it goes there.
The hot spot on my monitor's cage was like 140, like the hottest part, So it sucks a lot of power.
That's one good thing about keeping only New Caledonian geckos right now. I don't have anything that's that requires more than like 75, 76 degrees, which is nice.
Heck yeah, man. Well, hopefully at some point, once we move, I'll be able to have a room for a cold room and a hot room.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be badass.
That would be very cool. That would definitely be the goal.
We're getting up here in this close to an hour mark.
Yeah,
where's it at?
It should.
I just saw it.
You shouldn't take two. We're on that one. Right
no, I know we're up there, but I was looking for.
Oh man, we're right here.
Oh, there it is.
We're right here. Okay.
Yep, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
like to get that one in.
Yeah, we'll get it in.
Because that's a good one.
Yeah, we'll get it in. Just a couple of other stories that we want to talk about what's going on today. Reptile Smuggling. We talked about the Lizard King in the very beginning of this episode, that book by Brian Christie. It's funny, it's coming full circle. Reptile smuggling is something that maybe we don't think about nowadays, but it is still alive and well in today's world. And one of the sort of breaking stories right now in reptile smuggling is, I'm going to name him by name, Mike von Nostrand. If you've read The Lizard King, or if you've listened to it like us, he's the Lizard King. He's the namesake of that book. The book is basically about him. And I'm sure at base level he's a good guy, but he definitely got wrapped up in reptile smuggling in the old days, in the 80s and the early 90s, because basically almost everybody was at that point. They were importing things sometimes illegally, and they were shuffling paperwork to make it happen.
Yep.
But apparently he's got some charges brought against him again today. He apparently had a string of collectors that he was using to go out and illegally collect Florida native species of turtles and bring them to his location, where he would then conspire to and or actually do, I'm not sure what the results of the case are at this point, export them to various Asian countries. And the Asian market is hungry for turtles in more ways than one.
No, I think that was literal.
It's literal. Yeah, more ways than one. There's a lot of consumption of turtle in the Asian market, so it's a big food item. And there's also a lot of specialized collectors over there that are willing to offer huge money for specimens from the United States. And Florida made it illegal in 2009 to collect wild turtles for export or for personal use or for food use or anything like that. So he's facing another possible jail sentence for which he was sentenced before and spent like 8 months in prison.
Yeah.
And $250 in fines, and his company could be fined up to $500,000 as well. So yeah.
So basically, he got in trouble for bringing him in the first time, and now
he's getting in trouble for shipping them out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, full circle on that. Oh, and our notes do indicate that it's up to 5 years this time, so no slap on the wrist.
Maybe, yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But the justice system sometimes doesn't serve well. But yeah, he's up for another possible conviction, which is definitely unfortunate. But it's something that needs to be dealt with because we really can't tolerate this anymore. So another story, a little on the sad side, but I feel like it's worth talking about, especially because we need to get the word out there, because this type of stuff happens all the time. Sort of renowned industry guy, Tom Crutchfield. He's also down in Florida. Very recently, just November 1st, so just several days ago, he awoke to a literal horror story on his property, the Crutchfield farm. Somebody broke onto his property and cut the locks off of all of his outdoor cages and opened all the doors and possibly stole some animals, possibly just let out some animals, and maybe that's why they're still missing, and almost definitely killed a single animal, unfortunately. He had a female blue tree monitor that was found dead that morning as well. They think that she was killed by the intruders because she's not extremely friendly, so they probably tried to take her and ended up getting bit. That's what they think happened. Really sad. Tom's been in the industry a long time. He's a huge advocate for, the intelligence of reptiles. If you watch videos that he's been in or his own videos, he's got special relationships with all his animals, just an all around, really good guy for herpetoculture. And currently their reward for any information leading to the conviction of these guys for at least the break-in part of it, I don't know what the animal part of it's going to be, is up to $2,775. So, if you live in Florida or if you know somebody who lives down there, definitely let them know what's going on, and maybe we can try to round these guys up and have them pay for what they did, because it's absolutely awful.
Yeah, that's definitely messed up, man.
100% agree.
I mean, people don't understand our animals are like children to us, man.
Yeah.
Just like anybody else's, puppy or cat or, rabbit, rat, whatever animal you love, our animals are the same way. And it's unfortunate for someone to break into somebody and hurt an animal, let alone, take an animal, let alone hurting an animal, kill an animal, that really brought joy to somebody else. That's sad, man. I can't believe that people would, stoop to that level.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
absolutely
It's very
awful.
sad.
And Tom is in a place in Florida where he has the ability to keep a lot of these species outdoors because they thrive out there in the natural sunlight and the conditions that are available. And
everything thrives in Florida, right?
Everything thrives in Florida, and he should be able to keep his stuff outside on his farm without having to worry about somebody coming in and taking it or murdering some of his animals. It's just awful.
It's unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, I shared it to my Facebook page, so I recommend anybody who's watching this, if you love reptiles and you love the industry and you love the hobby, go on to the Crutchfield Farm Facebook page, find the post, share it to your page. We got to get this out there as much as we can. Somebody's got to know who did this. And the more we share it, the closer we'll become to bringing them to justice in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, man. And not just that, it's a great page, man. They're always showing some
beautiful animals.
Cool stuff, man.
Yeah, beautiful animals. Everything from venomous snakes to huge lizards.
Sometimes, when you see how these animals are kept outside,
Yeah.
So definitely a cool page. Check it out.
Absolutely. So one of the last things that we have to talk about, it's just sort of a random story, and this was actually brought to my attention by you, Gabe. It's the gentleman in Australia who took the really awful python bite.
Oh my God,
this is gnarly.
Yeah.
Dude, that bite. We probably can't show it, but
no, I'm not going to show it, but
it was pretty gnarly, man. I honestly didn't even know a carpet python could tear you up like that. But I mean, not that bad. Not that bad. I mean, that was pretty gruesome. I forget what's the guy's name.
Kane Durant.
Yeah. Why don't you take the lead on it, Gabe? You know more about it than I do.
No, I don't actually. I didn't. No, I just seen. You know what, man? I seen the article. I was at work, and I seen that article, just kind of glazing to, just looking through stuff, and it just says, "Large snake attacks like man or whatever." And I'm like, what the heck? So I look into it, and basically this snake was just like crossing the street, or was like basking on the street, and some people were out there looking at it, and stuff like that. They had pulled over to check it out. And this guy, what's his name again?
Kane Durant.
Kane Durant. There you go. He seems like he owns a company that.
Yeah, he's a big snake enthusiast. He also owns a company out there where they do removal and relocation.
You know this better than I do. What are you talking about?
I know I do, but we should both talk about it. Yeah. So he comes out there, right? Is what you're saying is he comes out there on the road. He comes upon this really large. I think it was somewhere around 9 foot carpet python.
That's a big one.
Dude, it's a coastal carpet, and basically, he's just sitting there, checking this animal out. He was taking looked like he was going to take an educational video or something like that. And this snake it turned around and just grabbed him right on the wrist, man. Yeah. And he just a defensive move, it was just being defensive. But I mean, it lit him up, bro. I mean, that was
and when you say lit him up, we can be more specific. It severed his radial artery in two. Yeah.
That's a scary bite, man. I've only ever seen retic bites that bad, or big snake bites that bad. I mean, that was rough, man.
And I think it's important to note that that's not common. That doesn't always happen when you get bit, even by a large snake. He just got unlucky, so to speak.
Very unlucky.
He got unlucky. But I think what we really wanted to talk about with this, it plays back into how the media portrays what we do, and reptiles in general. Like you said, the headline caught you, right? Like it grabbed your attention. And what
it just got my attention because it was just like big, aggressive snake, I think is what it said.
Angry, I think.
Angry, aggressive snake attacks man or whatever.
Right. So you read the article and you're using these sort of hot button words, angry, attacked, things like that, and that's the media. I'm not going to say that they're maliciously trying to paint a picture of evil snakes or anything like that, but they're definitely going for, hey, look at this article. You got to see this type of thing.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
inadvertently, I think it paints the wrong picture of what happened.
Sure
But
does.
if you look, I looked into Durant. I looked into King Durant. He's a stand-up guy in the herp community for sure. I mean, being an Australian native, I mean, come on, man. There's no better place in the world to go around and love your reptiles, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, he runs this business where he does snake removal and relocation. He's licensed to do it. He's professional. He's dealing with snakes of all sizes and all levels of venomosity, if you want to call it. Yeah, I mean, he's dealing with some of the most venomous snakes in
it's
the world.
Australia,
Sure.
so
yeah,
everything will kill you twice out there.
absolutely. So he's, if you look at his side of the story, he tells it like a true herper. He picked the snake up to move it off the road. Obviously, a good deed.
Yeah.
He's into educating the public, so he had his people help him take a short video. He ended up getting bit. He uses the correct terminology. The snake bit in a defensive manner.
Yeah.
The snake felt threatened, and so it bit him. And he gets bit all the time, and he knew that was a possibility when he picked up that snake. It's just his particular bite in this case was exceptionally bad.
Really, man.
And
again, extremely rare to have a bite of that severity.
Yeah, he just got unlucky, and he took it like a champ. He ended up in the hospital for a couple of days. Got his artery stitched back together, and he's back out there at it. So, just an interesting little excerpt on how the media sometimes portrays these things. When pythons get out or when pythons bite somebody, it's almost always a person's fault. And I mean, in this case, technically, it was King Durant's fault, and he knows that. But he was doing what he considered to be the right thing, and what any of us would do if we were there too, is get that snake off the road. So,
yep, basically. So, I mean, there was just another article that I sent you about it.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to look at it because it was too late.
It was just, funny, but just, about a huge, African snake that was released in, whatchamacallit, in Chicago at a park or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Some lady found this huge snake underneath her car that was a ball python.
Oh, it could have only been but so big.
But it was a huge African snake, man. At least that's what the headline said.
Huge African snake.
It's like huge African native snake or something.
That's clickbait right there.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's
clickbait.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Crazy, man.
So basically, that was sort of the last thing we had to talk about tonight. I'm sure they're not the only things going on in reptile news today, but there were the coolest topics that we could find, and we just thought it would be interesting to, just give you guys a little excerpt. And if you like this video, please, comment and let us know, because we can make this a regular thing. We could do it once a month or so and just sort of talk about what's going on. It would definitely be a way for us to get a good episode in. But before we wrap up, and do our sign off, I do want to mention that we're going to have our very first guest on this podcast next week.
You didn't say. I was gonna say.
Yeah, next week.
Who it is, or are you gonna keep it?
No, I'm gonna say who it is because I'm gonna announce it here soon. So I'm gonna say who it is. I don't think we should keep it a secret. So we're having Wally Kern of Supreme Gecko on next week. Wally
super
Kern,
excited.
Super excited.
Yeah.
Super excited to have Wally on. When I started this YouTube channel, I set it up, and then I really didn't make a video for a really long time. And my very first video that I posted about isopods, which is one of the things that Wally's interested in, probably why he saw the video, he was the first person to comment on the video, and I was like, holy moly, that's Wally Kern from Supreme Gecko. I've been watching his videos for a while.
Yeah.
And he's just a really nice guy. We talk
super
back and
class
forth.
act. Great content. Great content. Super guy.
We talk back and forth all the time in comments. And so I asked him recently if he wanted to be on the podcast, and he said he would be honored, which we're honored to have him. So, so we're going to get prepped for that. And next Friday, as always, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are going to be on with Wally Kern. So please do tune in for that. It's going to be a great episode. We're going to have a great talk. But that's really all we have for you guys tonight. So everyone who's been watching tonight, we really appreciate it. Jonathan Parker,
Parker. Shout out to the main man right there.
There you
Look
go.
forward to seeing you next week, man.
Jonathan Parker, always commenting when he watches. We really like that. We really want to interact with you guys. So anyone who happens to be watching the podcast while it's live, please do comment. We will put your comment on screen. We'll have a conversation with you. We don't mind breaking off and talking to you about these things. So
Definitely. And again, thank you so much,
To have
Jonathan
fun
Parker.
and to educate people, man.
yeah. I mean,
And
that's
educate
what we're here.
ourselves because, like I said, I'm still learning. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
You never stop learning.
No, never do.
Yep.
So if there's nothing else that anybody has to say, we will go ahead and wrap this thing
Find
up.
out, man. I guess.
Yeah.
We're good.
I got nothing.
Out
So
next week, man. Like and subscribe.
we will definitely see you next week, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell over that
Somewhere. Yeah.
way.
Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.
Never.
Never.
Ever. No, but seriously, it means the world to us, guys. If you could definitely like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Keep an eye out for us every Friday, Eastern Standard, 9:30. We love hearing from our main man here, Jonathan Parker. We'd love to hear from you too, each and every single one of you. So with all that being said, us three and our very first very special guest, Wally, we'll see you next week, where we will be hanging out because we've been hanging out and you're hanging out, and this is Reptile Hangouts. We'll see you next week, guys.
Peace, guys. Thanks for tuning in.